So I just got back from watching The Batman. Matt Reeves, The Batman. And I will tell you, this is very much his film. And I am going to stay spoiler-free in this review. And sometime this weekend, I will put up a spoiler review to, talk about some of the finer details of the movie that I don't want to talk about in this review because I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody. Now, the one thing I am going to talk about during this review is a little bit about the beginning and how that's going to relate to how the film kind of moves forward, but without giving anything away in the plot of the movie itself. This movie is a mixed bag for me, and I'm going to give a very honest review at the end. I am a Batman fan first and foremost. This is my absolute favorite fictional character, and I've seen every iteration of Batman. Where does this one fall? Well, what's interesting is I will not be going back to the theater to see this film again. And it's not because it's a bad film. It's actually an excellent film. But first of all, what I will tell you, well, you know what? First, let me talk about what was amazing about the film. Let's talk about the casting here. Okay, the casting is the best part. Selina Kyle, Zoe Kravitz, amazing. They nailed Catwoman from the comics. Her and her relationship with Batman, spot on, so well done. It was refreshing to see that they took this character seriously, and she was one of the best parts of the film. The other one was Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. Wow. There was only one time with one bit of dialogue where I could tell it was Colin Farrell. Outside of that, wow. What a makeup job. What a transformation. Incredible. You had the Iceberg Lounge in this film, not the grand big one that we see in the comic books, but this is at the beginning of his rise to becoming, the kingpin of Gotham. So he's not there yet, but that is part of the story. There's a very intertwined story going on here. So you've also got, why can't I think of his name? The guy playing James Gordon. I'm doing this off the top of my head, and it's late here. So what's his name who played Gordon? Amazing. Fantastic job as Gordon. You actually find out at the beginning of this movie he's had a relationship with Batman for the last several years, that Batman has been Batman, and I'll get into that here in a minute. You also had Andy Serkis playing Alfred. He did a great job too, but the one fault with him is he's not in the movie very much at all. And I was expecting a lot more with him and Bruce, and it just wasn't there. In a 3-hour film, they really should have had more with their relationship. Now, that kind of leads us here to my big problem with the film, okay? Well, I wouldn't say it's a big problem. My big fear going into this movie was that Robert Pattinson was just not going to do a good job as Batman. He's too skinny, and even in the film, he's shirtless in one part, and he looks like what I looked like when I was a teenager. So they did not bulk him up. He is not muscular in this film. He is kind of small for what they're doing. Now, they do compensate for that with the suit to try to make him look bigger, and I'm sure his stunt double, actually filled out the suit better than I know he did. I've seen the stunt double. So he portrayed Bruce great. He portrayed Batman great. There was no issues with his acting or with the character. My big problem with the film, and why I knock it down quite a bit, is the actual portrayal of Batman himself in the film. This is not Batman. This Batman portrayed in this movie is just, he's not the guy. Okay, let me explain how the movie starts a little bit, and this is where I wanted to talk about how it starts and where it goes, and I'm going to talk about the plot of the film without giving anything away and what you should expect and whether you should bring small kids or not to this film. My kids want to go see it. I'm not taking them. I don't think they could follow it, to be honest with you. It's a very intricate story. But the beginning of the movie, I go in and I've got some reservations about the movie to begin with. But I go in and the beginning starts great. You have Pattinson doing this monologue about being Batman for the last couple of years. And he talks about the symbol out in the sky being this great beacon, and it scares the holy living snot out of some criminals. And you see that at the very beginning of the movie. Okay? So I'm thinking, great, we're going to see Batman in the shadows here. Probably quite a bit during the film. That's not what happens. This is not the Batman from the shadows. He is full out in daylight. He just shows up at the Iceberg Lounge at the front door asking to be let in. He's out there with the police. He's getting photographed. He's like out there. He is not the guy in the shadows. Very disjointed for this character. That is not Batman. Now, I understand he's in his second year here. They call it the Gotham Project. That's what he keeps a journal where he talks about the Gotham Project. And he's in his second year. You find that out at the very beginning of the movie. So I'm not giving away anything about, the plot and how this story is going to move forward. And you would think with him doing the monologue at the beginning that would match what he does in the film, but it's not. And I will tell you that there's all the action sequences have been shown in the trailers. There were no surprises in this movie. Every single action sequence was already shown in the trailers. This is not an action movie at all. This is very much a story about, it's basically a re-envisioning of the year one story with Batman, but in his second year. He's on his crusade because his parents were killed, and he's been doing this for 2 years, thinking he's avenging their deaths. And that's where things there's a monkey wrench that's thrown into this whole thing throughout the film. Oh, and I forgot to talk about Paul Dano. He did an incredible job as the Riddler. Awesome. I almost forgot to talk about him. His character was very creepy in the film. They did a great job with him. But there's also a story plot later on where you just think he's maybe not the genius they made him out to be. And it was a little disappointing. But overall, the story with him was great. I'm not going to talk about how the story progresses, but it's really awesome what they do with his character. Really well done. Creepy dude. Amazing casting. Matt Reeves nailed the casting. Carmine Falcone. Again, freaking awesome. They talk about Maroni a lot in the film, but he's not. He's in jail. He's gone, okay? He's not a part of the movie. So let's talk about the plot and how it moves forward. I'm not going to give anything away about the plot. I want people to be surprised by it. All I will tell you is it is a reimagining of the year one storyline with all of these characters and Batman's rise to becoming Batman, I guess you would say, in the movie. It's a whole unique take, really well crafted. You won't be bored at all during the film. It's 3 hours. It doesn't really feel like 3 hours, which is good. It's a great story, but it is the most grounded story we have ever seen on Batman. This is more grounded than what Nolan did. And the thing is, I will not go back and see this film because it's just that. It's very much a detective story, and there's not a bunch of action in it. The car chase was the most action you get in the film, and it did go on for quite a while, and it was really well done. And outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot of action. And in fact, there's one part that did kind of surprise me, and you see a little glimpse of it in the trailer, and I'm not going to say what it is, but Batman does something he's never done. You can tell by the way he reacts when he has to do it. And the result of that, it was really cool what they did. And then all of a sudden, the end of that action sequence, he would have been dead in real life. Like, it would have killed him. And I'm like, well, you take this amazing sequence you were about to do and you end it kind of cheesy. And they almost did the same thing with the chase scene. There's one shot at the very end of the chase scene that went on a little too long and almost became a little goofy. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad they didn't turn it into a joke, but it easily could have been turned into one. And so, not that those sequences were jokes, but not the way I would have ended them. There's nothing to get your adrenaline up, heart pounding. You want to root for Batman. It doesn't happen in this film. And in fact, the music by Michael Giacchino, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I was looking this up the other day and I forgot to write down how you say his last name. But his music is very adequate for the film. But there's no amazing Batman theme. There is a Batman theme in the film, but it doesn't get you pumped up and excited to see the Batman. It's not like that. There's no action sequences that would call for that rah-rah moment where, it gives you chills and it's amazing. That doesn't happen in this film. That's not what this film is. It is the most down-to-earth, grounded film. You got a guy being Batman who's just out there, which is not Batman. and you've got this great story, a retelling of year one. That's all I'm going to tell you about the overall plot and how this progresses. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. I'm not going to tell you how the story intertwines. I'll give some things away in the spoiler review. But let's talk about what I give this film at the end of the day. I won't be going back to see it because it's a very intricate story that I know my kids are not going to be able to follow. If you're not, an adult with a developed brain or even understand who these characters are in the comic book, it's going to be a very hard story to follow. So at the end of the day, here's my score. It's a 3.5 out of 5. I can't give it higher than that because this isn't Batman. And there's some monologue at the end of the film that may make up for how he was portrayed in the film, but it's kind of like a bait and switch kind of thing, I feel like, and maybe the next movie will be the movie that I really want to see, but there's no way to tell because we don't know if there's going to be a sequel or not. I'm assuming that this movie is going to make some money. The critics love it, which is amazing. And there is some woke stuff in the film that is briefly mentioned but doesn't ruin the film, which is good. It's just some basic stuff, nothing outlandish. It doesn't ruin the movie anyway or drag it down. It's the way they portrayed Batman in the film that really drags me down. Now, what I really liked about Batman is we got to see him be a detective, and we got to see some of his detective skills, and we got to see some very interesting gadgets and things that he uses, and it was really cool to see how he can function in the world the way they have it set up. So there's one thing I want to talk about. This might be minor spoilers, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers, you can kind of head out at this stage. But these are minor spoilers. They're not going to really screw up the movie in any way. There are a couple of references in here where you think they're going to bring in the Court of Owls, which they don't, okay? You could tell that Matt Reeves put this stuff in there to perk people's ears and eyes up, people who are fans of the character and have read the comics. There's also some story threads in there to think that Hush is involved, but that's not the case, okay? So don't go in thinking this is a Hush storyline or that Hush is in it. Don't go in thinking the Court of Owls is a part of this. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Now, the director put stuff in there to make people think and get their minds, spinning and that just thinking about it, but it's not part of the story. This is very much the Riddler. It's very much Catwoman. It's very much the Rise of Penguin. James Gordon coming into Jeffrey Wright, by the way, just popped into my head. Jeffrey Wright did a great job as Gordon, and he's not the commissioner in this film yet. So I just can't give it more than that because it's not an action film. There's not enough action in it to get me to want to go back and see this again and again and again. Once was pretty much enough, and I'll buy it when it comes out. But it's a heavy film. It's not a film I would want to watch all the time, whereas, you'll get more enjoyment out of watching anything, that Nolan may have done. So is this better than The Dark Knight? No, okay? To me, it's not better than The Dark Knight at all. It's not even better than Batman Begins. Probably not even better than The Dark Knight Rises. For me, this definitely ranks higher than the Keaton movies, definitely higher than Val Kilmer, definitely higher than George Clooney. But I would put all the other movies way above this. Even the Batman vs. Superman is probably Batman vs. Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League are by far my favorite. And we still haven't seen a scene that tops the scene in Batman vs. Superman in the warehouse. Okay, we still haven't gotten it. That is still the best Batman scene that has ever been filmed. And, for people who don't know, that was not CGI in that scene. It was really stunt people doing those moves. So it was real. It was not CGI, which was pretty freaking amazing watching it being done. But in this film, you don't have anything really memorable. They showed you everything in the trailer. And what's interesting is there's a scene where he breaks through this skylight to land on this catwalk in the trailer, and he beats up some guys and, kind of pushes one up against the rail. And in the trailer, it's completely clear. In the movie, that whole sequence has smoke in it, and it's like, what the heck? So they definitely changed some things and added some stuff to the film, which made the trailer a little, different from the trailer. But at the end of the day, this is a great story. It's a great detective story. It's a great, almost borderline horror type story that's going to keep you engaged, and there's some twists and turns in it that you don't really see coming, and they're really well crafted. It's a good movie. It's a good story. But is it enough to bring you back to the theater time and time again? I really don't think so, because being a Batman fan, I'll probably wait until, maybe a month or so and then maybe go back and see it one more time just to see if I missed anything. But I think I pretty much got it all the first time. And Turturro did a fantastic job as Falcone in the film. He did a great job. In fact, he was one of my favorite parts of the movie. What they did with his character was pretty awesome. So you can go and enjoy this movie once, and I think you'll get everything out of it that you need. So do I hate this film? No. Is it the second coming like everybody makes it out to be? No, it's not that. And the one thing I will tell you is this shows how much of a fraud Warner Brothers is, because they complained that Zack Snyder was too dark, too serious, and they wanted to move away from that and start following the Marvel formula, but then they made this movie. Doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. This was about the most serious movie you're ever going to see. So at the end of the day, again, it's a solid 3.5 out of 5. Not great. Not terrible. Maybe the next movie will be better. And they're going to have to bulk up Pattinson. I got to tell you right now, if they don't bulk this guy up, it's going to be a huge miss. I don't see him. And he's got to hide in the freaking shadows. He's got to become the Batman that he's supposed to be. You can't have this guy running around in daylight. You can't have him running around the police like that out in the open. It just doesn't work. So that was my big gripe in the film, is this is not quite the Batman that I was expecting to see. But Pattinson didn't do a bad job. He actually did really well in the role. He did great as Bruce Wayne. He did great as Batman. It's the way that Batman was portrayed. That was my big problem. So if you guys have seen it, let me know what you think. I will be doing kind of a spoiler review over the weekend to talk about more of the intricacies of the plot, and we'll look at that over the weekend. All right, I still have my Peacemaker Season 1 review coming up soon, and we'll see you guys on the next video.